My name is Eleanor, and I'm 32 years old. For 7 years, I owned the beautiful Victorian house my grandmother left me when she passed. It was my sanctuary filled with memories and love. Last month, I returned from a business trip to find my parents and sisters standing in my living room with changed locks. My father's cold words still echo in my mind. "You have 24 hours to get your stuff out. Your sister owns that house now." I felt my world collapsing as I realized what they had done. If you're curious about what happened next and how I responded to this ultimate betrayal, stick around. Before I continue, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Please hit that like and subscribe button while you share your location in the comments. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Portland, always feeling like I had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. As the first person in my family to attend college, I juggled 3 part-time jobs while maintaining a full scholarship. My parents, Robert and Diana, always seemed more impressed by my younger sister Amanda's social skills than my academic achievements. "Eleanor's just book smart," my mother would say dismissively at family gatherings. "Amanda knows how to connect with people." This pattern continued throughout our childhood. Amanda received new clothes and the latest gadgets, while I wore hand-me-downs and saved for my own computer. It wasn't that we were poor, just that the family resources seemed disproportionately allocated. The one person who always believed in me was my grandmother Beatrice. She lived in a beautiful Victorian house on Maple Street, with its wraparound porch and stained glass windows. Every Sunday I would visit her while my parents took Amanda shopping. "You have something special," Eleanor, Grandma Beatrice would tell me as we baked cookies in her vintage kitchen. "Your determination will take you places they can't even imagine." She had been a mathematics teacher in an era when women were discouraged from pursuing such fields. Her husband, my grandfather, had passed away when I was just a toddler, leaving her fiercely independent for most of my life. When I got accepted to Stanford with a scholarship, my parents seemed almost disappointed. "That's so far away," my mother complained. "Who's going to help with family functions?" Amanda, meanwhile, dropped out of community college after one semester, declaring it wasn't her scene. My parents rallied around her, praising her for knowing herself and supporting her through a series of short-lived jobs and entrepreneurial ventures that inevitably failed. After graduating with honors in computer science, I landed a job at a prestigious tech company. I bought my first car, paid off my student loans, and started building a life for myself. Meanwhile, Amanda moved back home at 25, where my parents converted their home office into her apartment. When Grandma Beatrice turned 80, her health began to decline. Without hesitation, I transferred to my company's Portland office to be closer to her. For 3 years, I spent every evening and weekend at her house, helping with medications, doctor's appointments, and household maintenance, all while maintaining my demanding job. My parents visited occasionally, usually with Amanda in tow, but these visits were brief and centered around taking inventory of Grandma's possessions. "This crystal vase would look perfect in our dining room," my mother would comment while my father assessed the antique furniture with calculating eyes. Amanda would roll her eyes when Grandma told stories about her teaching days, checking her phone impatiently. During those final years, the bond between Grandma and me deepened further. She shared family stories, taught me to make her famous apple pie, and insisted I learn about the house's history and maintenance. "This house has been in our family for generations," she told me one evening as we sat on the porch swing. "I've always loved how you appreciate its character, Eleanor. Not everyone sees its value beyond the real estate." When Grandma Beatrice passed away peacefully in her sleep, I was devastated. At the funeral, my grief was overwhelming while my parents seemed more concerned with the reception details, and Amanda complained about her black dress being uncomfortable. A week later, we gathered in the office of Grandma's attorney, Mr. Patterson, for the reading of the will. When he announced that Grandma had left her house to me, the tension in the room was palpable. "There must be some mistake," my father said immediately. "Diana is Beatrice's only child. Surely the house should go to her." Mr. Patterson adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Beatrice was very clear about her wishes. The house goes to Eleanor along with most of the furniture and family heirlooms. There are specific bequests of money to each family member as well." My mother received $20,000, my father the same, and Amanda $50,000 to further her education or establish a business. I later learned this was substantially more than what my parents received, likely Grandma's attempt at creating some balance. For weeks afterward, my parents barely spoke to me. Amanda sent text messages about how unfair it was that I got a whole house, while she just got some cash that won't even last a year. Despite the tension, I moved into Grandma's house, now legally mine, and made it my home. I maintained its historic character while updating the electrical and plumbing systems. I tended to Grandma's garden and kept her photos displayed prominently. Occasionally, I invited my family over for holidays and special occasions, hoping to rebuild our relationship. These visits were strained, with my mother pointing out things she would do differently, and my father asking pointed questions about property taxes and maintenance costs. During one Thanksgiving dinner, I overheard my parents whispering in the kitchen. "This neighborhood has appreciated significantly," my father murmured. "The developer who approached us about the Johnson property would pay triple for this location." "She doesn't need all this space," my mother agreed. "Amanda could really use the financial security." I pretended not to hear, telling myself they were just expressing natural envy. I never imagined they were actually plotting. 3 years passed. I established myself further in my career, the house increased in value, and I created a peaceful life surrounded by memories of Grandma. I noticed my family became suddenly more interested in visiting with my mother, asking to see certain documents out of curiosity, and my father offering to help organize Grandma's old files in the office. Last month, my company sent me to San Francisco for a major project launch. I was excited about the career opportunity and arranged for my neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, to water Grandma's rose bushes during my 2-week absence. 3 days into my trip, Mrs. Rodriguez texted me, "Your parents have been at the house for hours. Brought some man in a suit. Everything okay?" I called my mother immediately, but she didn't answer. Neither did my father or Amanda. Concerned, I changed my flight and returned home early, taking a red-eye that landed at 4:30 in the morning. When my Uber pulled up to the house, all the lights were on despite the early hour. And when I tried my key in the front door, it didn't work. The locks had been changed. I stood on my own porch, locked out of my home, with an overwhelming sense of dread building in my chest. After knocking repeatedly, the door finally opened. My father stood there, tall and imposing in his tailored shirt, not a hint of shame on his face. "You're back early," he said flatly, not moving to let me in. "Dad, why is my lock changed?" I asked, my voice shaking despite my efforts to stay calm. He stepped aside silently, and I entered my home to find my mother and sister sitting in my living room. Amanda was lounging in Grandma's antique chair, scrolling through her phone with a bored expression. My mother sat primly on the edge of the sofa, her hands folded in her lap. The atmosphere was thick with tension as I noticed several bankers' boxes stacked by the wall, and what looked like legal documents spread on the coffee table. "What's going on?" I demanded, dropping my suitcase by the door. My father cleared his throat and delivered the blow without preamble. "You have 24 hours to get your stuff out. Your sister owns that house now." The words hit me like a physical force. I actually took a step back, certain I had misheard. "What are you talking about? This is my house. Grandma left it to me." My mother's voice was eerily calm as she explained, "We've transferred the deed to Amanda. It's all legal and finalized. We thought it would be easier to do this while you were away." "Easier?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Easier to steal my house behind my back." Amanda finally looked up from her phone, a smug smile playing on her lips. "You were always Grandma's favorite. Now things are balanced." I lunged for the papers on the coffee table, quickly scanning the documents with growing horror. Somehow they had produced a power of attorney document with what appeared to be my signature, giving my father the right to transfer the deed to Amanda. "This is forged," I shouted, waving his paper. "I never signed this." My father remained unmoved. "It's been notarized and filed with the county. The deed has been transferred. The house belongs to Amanda now." My mother stood and approached me with what she probably thought was a sympathetic expression. "Eleanor, be reasonable. You have a good job and can afford to buy another place. Amanda needs this security. She's still finding her way. I looked at my sister, now 30 years old, who had never held a job for more than 6 months and had burned through her inheritance from Grandma within a year on designer clothes and a luxury car she could no longer afford. "This is illegal," I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I will fight this." My father's expression hardened. "If you make trouble about this, you'll no longer be welcome in this family. Sometimes we have to make difficult decisions for the greater good. Amanda needs this house more than you do." "I need it," Amanda interjected with a laugh. "This old place needs to be gutted and modernized. The developer Dad knows is offering $750,000. That's what I need." The truth hit me like a sledgehammer. They weren't just stealing my home, they were planning to sell it immediately for cash, erasing all traces of Grandma and the generations of history within these walls. "You can't do this," I whispered, tears finally breaking through. "It's already done," my father replied coldly. 24 hours, Eleanor. Take what's personally yours and leave the furniture. We'll have someone monitor to make sure nothing of value disappears." They left me standing in the entryway of what had been my home just days before. As the door closed behind them with the unfamiliar click of new locks, I collapsed onto the stairs and sobbed uncontrollably. Years of maintaining a relationship with people who clearly saw me as nothing more than an obstacle to their financial gain. The betrayal was complete, and I had 24 hours to respond. My hands shook as I tried to process what had just happened. The family I'd spent a lifetime trying to please had stolen my home through fraud and deception. The weight of betrayal pressed down on me until I could barely breathe. Panic rose in my chest, threatening to overwhelm me completely. Then something shifted. A cold clarity replaced the panic as my tech industry problem-solving skills kicked in. This was a complex situation with legal, emotional, and practical dimensions, but it was solvable. I needed resources, documentation, and a strategy. I pulled out my phone and called Taylor, my best friend since college. She answered groggily. "Ellie, it's 5 in the morning. What's wrong?" Through tears, I explained the situation. "Those absolute monsters," Taylor gasped. "Come stay with me. My guest room is yours for as long as you need it." "Thank you," I said, my voice steadying. "But first I need to document everything and gather what I can." My next call was to Lisa Harrington, an attorney I'd met through a Women in Tech mentoring program. Despite the early hour, she answered and listened intently to my situation. "Don't sign anything, don't agree to anything," she instructed. "What they've done constitutes fraud, forgery, and possibly elder abuse if they began planning this while your grandmother was still alive. Take photos of every document they left. I'll file for an emergency injunction first thing in the morning." With a plan forming, I moved methodically through the house. I photographed the forged power of attorney and all associated documents. I located Grandma's original will in her antique secretary desk and took photos of each page. I gathered my birth certificate, tax returns, and all documentation showing I had been paying property taxes and utilities for years. In Grandma's bedroom, I found her old digital camera and discovered it contained photos from her last birthday, showing me caring for her while my family members stood awkwardly in the background. Evidence of our relationship and my role as her caregiver. Next, I filmed a video walkthrough of the entire house narrating which items had belonged to Grandma and which I had purchased. I documented the garden I had maintained, the repairs I had overseen, the life I had built. While searching for additional documentation in Grandma's office, I discovered something unexpected. Behind her collection of first edition books was a small fireproof box I had never seen before. The key was taped to the bottom of the drawer, just like Grandma had always hidden her spare house key. Inside was a handwritten letter from Grandma dated just 3 weeks before her death. "My dearest Eleanor," it began, "if you're reading this, I fear my concerns about your parents' intentions have proven justified. I've instructed Mr. Patterson to give you this box only if there's a challenge to my will. Inside, you'll find additional documentation, including recorded conversations where your parents discussed contesting my will and convincing me to change it. I've always known who truly loved this house and would honor its legacy. Stand firm, my brave girl. This home is yours, as it should be. All my love, Grandma. The box contained a small digital recorder and several legal documents, including a secondary verification of her will and statements from her doctor confirming her sound mind when the will was created. The recorder contained 3 conversations. In one, my parents could be clearly heard discussing how unfair it was that the house would go to me. In another, my father suggested they could work on Mother to change her mind about the will. The third was the most damning, a recorded attempt to pressure Grandma into changing her will, with my grandmother's clear refusal and statement that she was leaving the house to me because Eleanor is the only one who truly loves it for what it is, not what it's worth. This discovery renewed my strength. Grandma had anticipated this betrayal and armed me against it. As dawn broke, I began the heartbreaking task of packing essentials and irreplaceable items. Family photos, particularly those with Grandma, my laptop and work materials, clothing, and personal items. I worked methodically, focusing on the task rather than the emotion. Mid-morning, I discovered something else unexpected. The home security system I had installed after moving in included cameras at all entry points. Checking the footage, I found recordings of my parents entering my house multiple times during my absence, once with a man who appeared to be a notary, and another time with someone carrying what looked like real estate documents. Each new discovery fueled my determination. This wasn't just about a house. It was about honoring Grandma's wishes and standing up to years of manipulation and favoritism. Around noon, Mrs. Rodriguez brought me coffee and helped pack some kitchen items. I knew something wasn't right, she said, wrapping Grandma's teacups in newspaper. Your sister was here yesterday measuring rooms and talking about knocking down walls. She said the house would be going on the market next week. The conversation revealed another piece of the puzzle. My father had been approaching neighbors about selling their properties too. There was apparently a major development planned for the area, with our street being rezoned for commercial use. My house, with its corner lot and historical features, was the linchpin property. This wasn't just about stealing my inheritance. It was about a significant financial windfall through property development. My home was standing in the way of my father's biggest real estate deal yet. By evening, I had filled Taylor's SUV with essentials and secured the most important documents and mementos. I had also formulated a strategy with Lisa, my attorney, who was already preparing legal filings for the following morning. I slept fitfully in my bedroom for the last time, knowing that my family would return at dawn to supervise my departure and ensure I didn't take anything valuable with me. As I lay in bed surrounded by half-packed boxes and the ghosts of memories, I made a decision. I would appear to comply with their demands tomorrow. I would leave quietly, giving them the false confidence that comes with an easy victory. And then I would unleash a legal and personal reckoning they would never forget. The first pale light of dawn was just breaking when I heard cars pulling into the driveway. Looking out my bedroom window, I saw my parents' Mercedes and Amanda's leased BMW, right on schedule for the eviction. I had been awake for hours, putting the final touches on my packing and preparation. I looked around at the bedroom that had been mine for 7 years and Grandma's for decades before that. The floral wallpaper she had chosen in the 1980s, the window seat where I had spent countless hours reading, the small mark on the doorframe where she had measured my height on my visits as a child. The doorbell rang insistently, followed by the sound of a key in the new lock. I took a deep breath, wiped away a stray tear, and headed downstairs to face my family one last time as a seemingly defeated daughter. "Good, you're up," my father said briskly when he saw me on the stairs. He was dressed in his business casual attire, as though this were just another day at the office rather than the day he was throwing his daughter out of her rightful home. "We've arranged for a storage unit if you need it. Your mother has the details." My mother stood in the entryway, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. "We thought it would be helpful," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Amanda brushed past both of them, already pulling fabric swatches from her purse. "I'm thinking of painting the living room charcoal gray and putting in hardwood to replace this old carpeting," she announced, completely ignoring my presence. "The developer says modern touches will increase the value, even though they'll probably just tear it down anyway. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. The idea of Grandma's lovingly maintained home being painted gray and flipped for profit was almost as painful as the betrayal itself. Almost. "I've packed what I can," I said quietly. "Taylor will be here with her truck for the larger items." My father checked his watch. "Let's try to be efficient. I have a meeting at 11. Of course he did. Evicting his daughter was just an inconvenient errand to run before a business lunch. As we moved through the house, Amanda pointed out furniture she planned to sell and modifications she wanted to make. "This staircase is so old-fashioned. I'm thinking of having it rebuilt with glass panels." The staircase where Grandma had taught me to slide down the banister when I was 7. My mother opened the cabinet where Grandma's china was displayed. "We should have this appraised. It might be worth something to a collector." The china we had used for our special tea parties when I visited as a little girl. Each casual comment about erasing Grandma's legacy twisted the knife deeper, but I maintained my composed facade. Let them think I was accepting this. Let them believe they had won. Taylor arrived with her truck, giving my family a glare so cold it could have frozen the sun. Together we loaded my personal belongings while my parents and sisters supervised, occasionally objecting to items they deemed part of the house. "That mirror stays," my father said sharply when I took down the antique oval mirror from my bedroom. "Grandma gave it to me for my 28th birthday," I replied quietly. "It was always mine, not part of the house." He started to argue, but my mother touched his arm, perhaps sensing that pushing too hard might break my compliant demeanor. As we worked, Amanda followed me from room to room, already planning her renovations in detail. "This bathroom is so dated. I'm going to gut it completely and put in one of those rainfall showers." The bathroom where Grandma had bathed me as a child, and where I had later helped her when she became too frail to manage alone. When we reached Grandma's bedroom, now Amanda's apparently, I paused at the doorway, overwhelmed by memories. "Don't worry about this room," Amanda said with a dismissive wave. "I'm not keeping any of this old lady furniture. My interior designer is coming tomorrow." I nodded silently and turned away, hiding the flash of rage in my eyes. By mid-morning, the essentials were packed. I stood in the entryway, looking around at the home that held so many memories. The banister Grandma had polished every spring. The creaky third step she never fixed because it warned her of midnight snack thieves. The stained glass window that cast rainbow patterns on the floor on sunny afternoons. "I think that's everything," I said, my voice steady, despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. My sister smirked, twirling her new house keys around her finger. "Thanks for not making this difficult, Ellie. I know it must be hard to accept that things are finally fair between us." Fair. As if taking my home through fraud was somehow balancing the cosmic scales. My father checked his watch again. "We should get going if I'm going to make my meeting." My mother actually attempted an awkward hug, which I endured without returning. "You can come visit sometime once the renovations are done," she offered magnanimously. I stepped back and looked at each of them in turn. My father impatient and businesslike. My mother uncomfortable but committed to the betrayal. My sister triumphant and already planning to destroy everything that made this house special. "You have no idea what's coming," I said quietly. My father's brow furrowed. "What does that mean?" I simply smiled, picked up my last bag, and walked out the front door. Behind me, I heard my sister laugh nervously. "Always so dramatic," she said. As Taylor and I drove away, I watched my family standing on the porch of my grandmother's house, looking smug and satisfied in their victory. They had no idea that I had spent the night planning their downfall, that evidence of their fraud was already in my attorney's hands, that the real battle was just beginning. I allowed myself one moment of pure grief as we turned the corner, a single sob escaping before I regained control. Then I pulled out my phone and texted Lisa. "Phase 1 complete. They believe I've surrendered. Proceed with filing." The war had just begun. Taylor's guest room became my command center. For someone who had just lost her home, I was remarkably focused and energized. Years of tech project management had taught me how to channel emotion into productive action. You can stay as long as you need, Taylor assured me, bringing in a cup of coffee as I set up my laptop on the small desk. My home is your home. The phrase stung, but I appreciated her kindness. This is temporary, I promised. I'm getting my house back. My first meeting with Lisa, my attorney confirmed what I already suspected: my family had committed multiple serious legal violations. The forged power of attorney alone is a felony, Lisa explained, examining the document. Add fraud, conspiracy, and potential elder abuse, since they clearly began planning this while your grandmother was alive, and they're facing serious consequences. She was impressed with the evidence I had gathered. Your grandmother was one smart lady preparing for this possibility. The recordings are particularly damning, and the security camera footage showing them entering repeatedly during your absence and bringing in someone who appears to be forging your signature, that's the nail in the coffin. We developed a two-pronged approach: an emergency injunction to freeze any transactions related to the property, followed by a comprehensive civil case to restore my ownership and seek damages. What about criminal charges? I asked, thinking of the forgery. Lisa's expression was grave. That will be up to the district attorney, but with this evidence, charges are likely. Are you prepared for that possibility? It would mean your family potentially facing jail time. I thought about my father's cold dismissal, my mother's weak justifications, and my sister's smug entitlement. I thought about Grandma's last years and how they had barely visited her, interested only in what they could eventually take. Yes, I said firmly. They made their choice. Now they can face the consequences. While the legal wheels began turning, I hired a private investigator named Marcus to dig deeper into my family's finances and the proposed development. His findings were illuminating. Your father's real estate business is in serious trouble, Marcus reported. He's leveraged to the hilt and has several loans coming due. This development deal is his Hail Mary pass. Without it, he's likely facing bankruptcy. That explained the desperate measures. My father wasn't just being greedy, he was drowning financially and saw my house as his life raft. Further investigation revealed that Amanda wasn't just a passive beneficiary, she had been actively involved in the planning, even meeting with the developer months before they made their move. I also reached out to extended family members who had been at Grandma's funeral, but with whom we'd lost regular contact over the years. My Aunt Catherine, my mother's estranged sister, was particularly helpful. Your grandmother told me she was leaving you the house, Catherine confirmed over video chat. She was very clear about her wishes and sound of mind. She also expressed concerns that your parents might try to contest the will. Catherine agreed to provide a sworn statement about these conversations. 3 of Grandma's old friends from her teaching days did the same. Meanwhile, I maintained complete silence on social media and didn't respond to the occasional text from my mother asking if I was settling in okay at my new place. Let them think I had accepted defeat. Let them proceed with their plans without suspecting I was building a case against them. The hardest part was the emotional toll. At night, when the day's strategic planning was done, the magnitude of the betrayal would hit me anew. These people were my family. I had spent decades seeking their approval, making excuses for their treatment of me, maintaining a relationship despite the clear favoritism shown to Amanda. Have you considered therapy during this process? Taylor suggested gently one evening when she found me crying over an old photo album. This is a lot to process alone. She was right. I found a therapist specializing in family trauma, Dr. Winters, who helped me navigate the complex grief of losing not just my home, but any illusion of having a loving family. What you're experiencing is complicated grief, Dr. Winters explained. You're mourning the loss of your home, the betrayal by your family, and also the death of the relationship you thought you had or hoped to have with them. Our sessions helped me recognize patterns I had normalized: the constant comparison to Amanda, the dismissal of my achievements, the expectation that I would always put family needs before my own while receiving nothing in return. Setting boundaries isn't just about protecting yourself from future harm, Dr. Winters told me. It's about honoring your own worth. By the end of the first week in Taylor's guest room, I had assembled a strong legal case, begun important emotional healing work, and built a support network that included neighbors from my street who were outraged by what had happened. Mrs. Rodriguez kept me updated on activities at the house. "Your sister has brought in contractors to give estimates," she reported, "and a man with a clipboard has been measuring the yard." I thanked her for the information, each update strengthening my resolve. They were moving quickly, confident in their victory, unaware that in 3 days we would be filing legal papers that would stop them in their tracks. On the night before our court filing, I sat with Taylor on her balcony looking at the stars. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" she asked, handing me a glass of wine. I nodded, feeling a strange calm settle over me. I've spent my whole life trying to earn their love and approval. Tomorrow I stop trying and start standing up for myself. "To standing up," Taylor said, raising her glass. I clinked mine against hers. "And to Grandma Beatrice, who knew all along that I would need to." The next morning, Lisa filed for an emergency injunction to freeze the property status, including blocking any potential sale or development plans. We also filed a comprehensive civil complaint detailing the fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. By noon, my family would be served with court papers. By evening, they would realize that their easy victory was anything but. The countdown to justice had begun. The courthouse steps were intimidating as I climbed them 3 days later, dressed in my most professional navy blue suit. Lisa walked beside me, legal briefcase in hand, projecting confidence and competence. "Remember," she murmured as we approached the doors. "Let the evidence speak for itself. Judge Montgomery has reviewed our emergency filing and seems concerned by what she's seen so far." Inside the courtroom was cool and formal, with polished wooden benches and the subtle scent of lemon polish. I sat at the plaintiff's table, back straight, hands folded to hide their slight trembling. When my family entered with their attorney, a silver-haired man with an expensive suit and arrogant demeanor, I did not turn around. I felt their presence, heard my mother's sharp intake of breath when she saw me, but kept my eyes forward. Judge Montgomery entered, and the proceedings began with formal introductions. When it was time to present our emergency motion, Lisa was eloquent and precise. "Your Honor, we are seeking an immediate injunction to prevent the fraudulent transfer and potential sale of the property at 724 Maple Street. The defendants have presented a forged power of attorney document to transfer the deed from my client, the rightful owner, to her sister. We have substantial evidence of forgery, conspiracy, and fraud." My family's attorney, Mr. Brennan, scoffed audibly. "Your Honor, this is a family matter that has been legally resolved. The property transfer has been completed according to all proper procedures, Ms. Warren is simply experiencing buyer's remorse after agreeing to transfer the property." The judge's expression remained neutral. "I'll hear the evidence before making any determinations." Lisa methodically presented our case. The original will leaving me the house tax and utility records showing my continuous ownership for 7 years, and then the bombshells Grandma's preserved recordings of my parents discussing plans to contest the will security footage showing them entering my house while I was away, an expert analysis of the forged signature on the power of attorney document. "Additionally, Your Honor," Lisa continued, "we have this letter from Beatrice Warren written shortly before her death, expressing concerns that her daughter and son-in-law might attempt to circumvent her wishes regarding the property." As Lisa read Grandma's letter aloud, I heard my mother gasp behind me. I still didn't turn around when Mr. Brennan had his turn. He attempted to paint me as an unreasonable family member refusing to share my good fortune. "The Warrens have merely attempted to create a more equitable distribution of family assets," he argued smoothly. "Ms. Eleanor Warren has enjoyed exclusive use of a valuable property for years, while her sister received substantially less from their grandmother's estate." The judge interrupted him. "Counselor, are you disputing the evidence of forgery presented by the plaintiff?" Mr. Brennan hesitated, clearly caught off guard by the directness of the question. "We contend that any agreements were made with the plaintiff's knowledge and consent." "That doesn't answer my question," Judge Montgomery said sharply. "The signature analysis indicates forgery. The security footage shows parties entering the plaintiff's home without permission during her absence. These are serious allegations that go well beyond a family disagreement. I could feel the mood in the courtroom shifting. Mr. Brennan conferred hurriedly with my father, whose face had grown increasingly pale. When the judge asked if I would like to make a statement, I rose and spoke clearly, my voice stronger than I had expected. Your Honor, 7 years ago, my grandmother left me her home because she knew I would preserve its history and character. I have honored that trust, maintaining the property and making it my home. While away on business, my family fraudulently transferred the deed using a forged document, then informed me I had 24 hours to vacate. Their plan, as evidenced by their own statements, was to immediately sell the property to a developer who would demolish it. This was not only a betrayal of me, but of my grandmother's explicit wishes. I paused, then added, I am not seeking punitive measures. I am simply asking for my home to be returned to me as my grandmother intended. Judge Montgomery considered for only a few moments before rendering her decision. Based on the compelling evidence presented, I am granting the emergency injunction. The property at 724 Maple Street is frozen from any sale, development, or transfer until this matter is fully resolved. The defendants are ordered not to enter the property or remove any items. Given the serious nature of the allegations, including forgery of legal documents, I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for review. She fixed my family with a stern look. The court takes a very dim view of using fraudulent means to transfer property regardless of family dynamics. We will reconvene in 2 weeks for a full hearing. As we left the courtroom, my father attempted to approach me, his face ashen. Eleanor, we need to talk about this reasonably. Lisa stepped between us. My client has nothing to say to you at this time. All communication should go through counsel. Outside on the courthouse steps, a local news reporter approached us. The story of a family using forgery to steal a house apparently had news value. Lisa handled the brief interview professionally, while I stood silently beside her. My client is simply seeking to reclaim her rightful home after an unfortunate instance of fraud, she stated calmly. We're grateful that the court has taken swift action to prevent further damage. As we walked to the parking lot, I finally allowed myself to feel the magnitude of what had just happened. We had won the first battle. My home was protected from immediate sale, and my family was facing potential criminal charges for their actions. What happens now? I asked Lisa as we reached her car. Now we prepare for the full hearing. But honestly, Eleanor, after today's ruling and with the evidence we have, I expect they'll be approaching us with a settlement offer very soon. They're looking at serious legal consequences if this proceeds. She was right. That evening, my father's attorney called Lisa with an initial offer they would rescind the fraudulent deed transfer and acknowledge my ownership in exchange for dropping all other claims. It's not enough, Lisa told me firmly. They committed forgery and fraud. There should be consequences and compensation for your distress and temporary displacement. We rejected the offer. 2 more followed over the next 3 days, each more favorable than the last. By the end of the week, they had agreed to return the house to me, pay all legal fees and moving expenses, and provide a written apology acknowledging the fraud. The district attorney's office was still reviewing the case for potential criminal charges, particularly related to the forgery. I had mixed feelings about this aspect. While I wanted justice, the idea of my parents potentially facing jail time was complicated. You don't have to decide how you feel about the criminal aspects right now. Dr. Winters assured me during our therapy session, your focus can be on reclaiming your home and establishing healthy boundaries going forward. 10 days after the emergency hearing, I stood once again on the porch of my grandmother's house. This time I had a locksmith with me changing all the locks back and a security specialist installing an upgraded alarm system. Mrs. Rodriguez came over with a houseplant as a welcome back gift. We're all so glad you fought for your home, she said warmly. This house belongs to you. As I stepped back into my home, I felt Grandma's presence strongly. The house had been slightly altered during my family's brief occupation. Amanda had already begun painting one room gray and had removed some of Grandma's artwork, but the bones of the home remained unchanged. I walked from room to room, reacquainting myself with the space, reclaiming it as my own. In Grandma's bedroom, I placed her photo back on the nightstand where it belonged. "I did it, Grandma," I whispered. "I stood up for myself just like you taught me." The legal aftermath continued for months. My parents and sister avoided criminal charges by agreeing to a substantial civil settlement and community service hours. The development deal fell through, and my father's business troubles became public knowledge. I received occasional texts from my mother, tentative attempts at reconciliation that never acknowledged the gravity of what they had done. Amanda blocked me on all social media and told mutual acquaintances I had overreacted to a simple misunderstanding. My father sent a formal letter clearly written by his attorney expressing regret for any misunderstanding, without actually admitting wrongdoing. I filed it away without responding. The hardest part was accepting that the family I had always longed for simply didn't exist. The parents who should have protected me had been willing to commit fraud to benefit my sister at my expense. The sister I had tried to connect with for decades saw me only as competition. But in losing this illusion of family, I gained clarity and freedom. I no longer needed to seek their approval or make excuses for their behavior. I could build my life on my terms, surrounded by people who genuinely cared for me. 1 year after the courthouse victory, my home was truly mine again in every sense. I had repainted the gray wall back to Grandma's preferred buttercup yellow, restored her artwork to its rightful places, and added my own touches that honored both her legacy and my future. The garden bloomed with her favorite roses alongside new plantings of my own. The kitchen retained its vintage charm, but now featured updated appliances that made cooking a joy. The home felt like the perfect blend of honoring history while embracing growth. In the aftermath of the betrayal, I had discovered true family in unexpected places. Taylor continued to be my rock dropping bi-weekly for movie nights and helping with house projects. Mrs. Rodriguez and other neighbors formed a tight-knit community, sharing holiday meals and keeping watchful eyes on each other's properties. My Aunt Catherine, with whom I had reconnected during the legal battle, became a regular visitor, sharing stories about Grandma that I had never heard before. "You remind me so much of her," she told me. That same quiet strength and determination. Professionally, I had channeled my energy into my career, earning a significant promotion. The focus required to fight the legal battle had translated well to managing complex tech projects, and my reputation for grace under pressure had spread throughout the company. Through a professional networking event, I met Jordan, an architect specializing in historical preservation. Our shared love of vintage homes and family legacy led to a deep connection. Unlike previous relationships where I had hidden my family troubles with Jordan, I was open about the betrayal and my ongoing healing process. "Family isn't always about blood," Jordan said one evening as we sat on my grandmother's porch swing. "It's about who shows up for you, who honors your boundaries, and celebrates your victories." The wisdom of that statement resonated deeply. I had created a chosen family of friends and allies who valued me for exactly who I was. In Grandma's memory, I established a small scholarship at the local community college for women pursuing degrees in mathematics or computer science. Each year I hosted a garden party for the recipients, sharing Grandma's story and her belief in education as a path to independence. The most difficult aspect of healing was determining what, if any, relationship I wanted with my biological family going forward. My parents continued to make occasional overtures, especially around holidays, but these attempts never included genuine acknowledgement of the harm they had caused. Amanda remained distant, having moved to another state after the development deal collapsed. Through mutual connections, I heard she had finally found stable employment and was perhaps developing some independence from our parents' influence. Dr. Winters helped me navigate these complex feelings. "Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to welcome them back into your life," she explained. "It can simply mean releasing the anger so it doesn't continue to harm you." With time, I reached a place of cautious neutrality. I responded politely but briefly to my parents' messages. I sent appropriate cards for birthdays and holidays. But I maintained firm boundaries about what I would discuss and how much access they had to my life. "I'm willing to have a relationship. I told my mother during a rare phone call, but only one based on honesty and respect. What happened wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a deliberate attempt to take something that rightfully belonged to me. Until that's acknowledged, we can't move forward in any meaningful way. She didn't have a response to that, but the fact that I could state it calmly without the overwhelming pain that had once accompanied these thoughts showed how far I had come. The house itself continued to be my sanctuary and my strength. Each creaky floorboard and sun-dappled window reminded me of Grandma's love and foresight. She had known that one day I would need to stand firm against the family patterns of favoritism and manipulation, and she had armed me with both legal protection and the confidence to use it. On quiet evenings, I often sat in her favorite chair by the fireplace, running my fingers over the worn armrests smoothed by generations of hands. In those moments, I felt a profound connection to her wisdom and courage. "Family isn't just who you're born to," she had told me once. "It's also who you choose, and who chooses you back every single day." Those words guided me as I built my new life, one surrounded by chosen family who supported my growth and celebrated my strength. The betrayal had nearly broken me, but in fighting back I had discovered a resilience I never knew I possessed. For anyone facing similar family betrayal, remember that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. True family lifts you up. It doesn't tear you down for personal gain. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from those who refuse to respect your boundaries, even if they share your blood. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who tried to take advantage of you? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If my journey has resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming family betrayal and finding strength in unexpected places. And remember, sometimes the family we choose is more valuable than the family we're born into. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the courage to protect what's rightfully yours.